Hey, what's up, my freedom-loving friend? I was just giving myself a little reassignment surgery because I don't want to fall behind the times. But on the serious note, welcome, my freedom-loving friend. They're coming for our kids. They've got some people's kids. This is the biggest concern on my mind, the indoctrination of today's youth, because a child's sovereignty depends on them having control over their mind. If you control someone's mind, you're controlling them. They're enslaved, even though there's not physical shackles. So as a father, I don't know about you, whether you have kids or you're gonna or not gonna, but maybe you're a kind-hearted person, you just care about kids anyway. What they're trying to do to our kids is probably my biggest concern, passion in life. So today I want to take a look at a video of Project Veritas. They do masterful work, in my opinion, where they have undercover journalists. And today's video, they've got an undercover journalist having a conversation with a public school teacher who is talking about how she teaches her school children, not her kids, but the children in her classroom, how to commit political violence. This is shocking. I mean, there's the gender ideology involved in schools, and now they're teaching kids how to commit political violence, which obviously implies they're indoctrinating them to the left and then committing political violence. So it's just absurd. But my hat's off to Project Veritas for doing the work to uncover a lot of what these leftist lunatics are doing to our children, because they try to go below the radar because they know what they're doing is wrong. States will pass, anti-woke laws. You can't teach critical race theory, teaching kids they're racist when they're not. They can't teach gender ideology. Then they find some of those same schools are teaching it anyway. And that's a big problem. And that's why I love Project Veritas' work of putting their butts on the line to expose a lot of these teachers. And some of these teachers recently, they've had to resign because what they're doing is getting exposed. So today's video, we're going to take a look.
Our undercover journalist met up with middle school English teacher Ariane Franco. Ms. Franco, who told us beside teaching English language arts to more than 60 teenage students a day, she says she uses violent protests as a learning tool for brick throwing.
And protest. Yeah. How to do a protest? Like we spent, I think, like a good 2 months. Yeah. Based on like how are they organized? Like what's their purpose? Yeah. Like the ones that worked, what did they do? Being loud.
Oh, what's that?
Being loud.
Yeah.
This is what I...
And she just laughs. Like, first off, you got to be loud. It's funny because it's great. By the way, she's a English teacher. I'd imagine she teaches more of the destruction of the English language, which is Marxism. Made up pronouns, made up like, hey, biology doesn't exist. That's destroying the English language. It's a way to get into the minds of young people, because if you destroy the reference points of objective truth, which language is symbolic representations of objective truth, just like we know north is north, we know south is south. Those are representations of objective truth. But you start destroying the symbolic representations of objective truth, language, you're starting to degrade the mind, because it's like trying to navigate through a mountain range and you don't have a compass. So I bet she doesn't actually teach the English language, probably teaches more the destruction of it.
I told my students, I was like, guys, there's strategic ways to do this. You wanna, and I brought up like crazy organizations that have done this, like
organizations that have done this. Yeah, that wouldn't be BLM and Antifa, would it?
They chose which places to throw bricks.
Which, by the way, like the organizations that have done this, that have strategically chosen which locations to violently protest in, which locations to throw bricks through the window of, there's organizations that have done this. How would you feel if you found out a teacher was teaching your kids how to emulate Antifa? If that doesn't make your blood boil, then you might not have blood.
Yeah.
They chose, and they didn't do it in their own neighborhood.
Yeah.
The key to violent protesting is don't do it in your own neighborhood because it's inherently destructive. We want to be destructive in someone else's neighborhood because then we're constructing a better society by destroying their neighborhoods.
They didn't do it to the, to the black and brown community.
Yeah.
That's like doing it to our own community does not make sense.
Doing it to your own community does not make sense, but doing it to other communities does make sense, as long as you don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
You gotta go out to the people who it's not directly affecting.
Yeah, if you're gonna throw a brick,
Yeah.
throw it.
Throw it at the people that I can actually bring the change.
Yeah.
Not only does Ariane Franco teach her students about effective violent protests, she explains how she had her kids, quote, change the words to the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's not the kids changing the words of the Pledge of Allegiance. That's them being instructed to change the words of the Pledge of Allegiance by someone who's in a position of authority over them. And in my opinion, when someone's in a position of authority over you, or in this case, kids, and they're telling you to do something that's not in your best interest, but in them, the authority figure's best interest, that's called authoritarianism. If someone in a position of authority is telling you to do something that's actually in your best interest, based on your own discernment, and the greater good of the whole community, not just they're telling you it's for the greater good, but it actually is for the greater good, that's called leadership, not authoritarianism.
Like I tell them, like my kids, we don't stand up for the pledge.
Okay.
We do the Pledge of Allegiance every morning.
Yeah.
No, but we keep on.
This is communist subversion. When you have indoctrination camps running where schools should be running, and they're teaching children to disrespect and even hate their country, that is communist subversion. And the interesting thing about it is the people implementing it at the ground level in the schools, like this fine lady, they don't know what they're actually doing. I highly doubt she knows I am implementing communist subversion. I don't know. I doubt she actually knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Right? It was a class decision at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah.
They're not talking about me, so I'm not standing up.
Yeah.
You know? At one point when I first started challenging it, I had my kids change their words.
Oh wow. How did it go?
I can't remember. It was something like, I think we added at the end, and we will fight for those who this does not address.
Yeah.
Something like that. We added to it, because it's a liberty and justice for all,
Yeah.
and we will fight until that is true.
Based on the Constitution, it's already true that all get liberty and justice. That's all right. It's kind of like, it's already what it's intended to do. The difference between teaching and political activism, it's only, that difference is only about the size of the gap of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. And how do you think kids can fight though? Because sometimes they feel powerless to fight.
Well,
they can't vote.
The first thing is to be able to be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
First thing is to be a critical thinker, which means have your political activist teacher tell you what to do and tell you what to think.
Challenge your parents.
Yeah.
Challenge the adults that you meet.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Which, by the way, I insanely agree. What she's saying about how to be a critical thinker, I agree. Challenge people, challenge your parents. I don't know if she's like talking about a respectful challenge, but you got to be curiosity. You got to question things. You got to think for yourself.
Yeah.
I used
Conversation.
to kneel when the BLM.
You used to what now?
I used to kneel.
Kneel.
I mean, I couldn't
In the
kneel
class?
all the way, but like, yeah, I
Would the
kneel
students
until,
do
like,
it?
She couldn't
too?
kneel all
Wow.
the
So
way
when
down.
how do you have that conversation with them about the pledge? Like, how do they understand?
I'm an ELA teacher. We break it down.
Yeah.
Every line in the pledge.
Because I love history. I want to learn from a teacher. So
Yeah, so you go the English route, like, okay, what does the pledge say? Okay, who wrote it?
yeah.
How does because no matter, like, a timeless piece means that you could take it out at any time and be able to put it in. But it is important to know when it was originally made because context matters.
So there you have it. I'm going to play devil's advocate against myself because I'm actually wearing a devil shirt of Biden. Just say no to Satan. It's my opinion. playing devil's advocate against myself for a second on this topic of teachers like this indoctrinating kids without the permission of the parents. I firmly believe in freedom of speech. I do believe a person can have the most lunatic, pro-communism, anti-American things to say. And guess what? Part of the beauty of this country is you have the right to say it. You do. However, public schools, I don't believe you have the right to indoctrinate children into your ideology. It's just kind of like we have freedom of speech. You can go to a movie, but you can't talk during the movie. It doesn't work. The actual venue has a policy. In order to enter here, you basically have to agree, shut the hell up while the movie's playing, otherwise it negatively affects people around you. If you want to exercise your freedom of speech, cool, go outside of this venue. A public school is a specific venue where there, in theory, is an agreement between the community, parents, other people in the community, that guess what? Fund the public schools. And then the school administrators that implement teachings, there's inherent, in theory, an agreement of what gets taught and what doesn't get taught. When that agreement is violated, that's just like not only talking during a movie theater, but it's brainwashing children during the movie theater. So while I wouldn't at all say this woman doesn't have a right to say what she's saying or to think what she thinks, as much as I believe it's really destructive leftist pro-communism garbage, I believe she has the right to say it. And I firmly believe she does not have the right to say it in the school setting to children whose parents aren't fully aware of what she's teaching their children. So let me know how you feel about public schools. That's one of the number one questions I get when I do comedy shows. Then I have a VIP experience after the show and we do a Q&A. And one of the number one questions I get is, JP, you have a kid now. What are you going to do about school? And I tell them, like, unfortunately, right now, I don't see public schools as even an option to consider. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts? What do you believe is the best way for we as a collective to educate our children? Do you believe public schools, they're still salvageable? What kind of school system do you suggest? Are you into homeschooling? So I'm curious. I would love to see what your thoughts are on the topic. And also let me know what else you think we can do to help protect our children from what I would say those in the shadow are doing in their attempts to come for their minds in order to rob children of their sovereignty, rob them of their own critical thinking, of their own discernment, rob them of their ability to trust their own instincts, their own heart, as well as to trust the good values that they learn from their families. What else can we be doing to protect our children? Because I would dare say life really matters. My life really matters to me. But if there's one thing that matters more to me than my life, it's my child's life. And if you're a parent, I'm guessing you know exactly what I'm saying. So let me know in the comments what else you think we can do to protect our children from those who are trying to come for their minds. And with that said, as uncomfortable as topics are like this, I'm so grateful that Project Veritas and a bunch of others are exposing them because awareness is so important. It can be uncomfortable, but I believe it's better to be uncomfortably awake than comfortably numb. So I hope you enjoyed Awakening today, and I hope the ultimate purpose of videos like this is for you and I to be more unapologetically willing to stand for freedom each and every day. See you next time, my friend. Stay free.